There is a bar in Columbus, Ohio. It has one entrance. That entrance is covered by 2 cameras. On the night of April 1st, 2006, a 27-year-old medical student named Brian Shaffer walked through that entrance. The cameras watched him go in. They never watched him come out. Not because they malfunctioned, not because the tape was lost. The cameras were rolling all night. Brian Shaffer simply disappeared. 3 weeks before that night, Brian buried his mother. Renee Shaffer had fought bone cancer for months. Brian had been at her side through every treatment, every hospital visit, every conversation a son should never have to have. She died in March 2006. Brian was devastated, but he kept moving forward because that's what Brian did. He was a second-year medical student at Ohio State. Smart, driven, the kind of person who studied through the night and still showed up smiling. He had a girlfriend, Alexis Wagoner, also a medical student. People who knew them said he was going to propose in Miami. They had a trip booked for that Monday. The ring was probably already picked out. On March 31st, 2006, the last night anyone would ever see him, Brian had dinner with his father, Randy, at a steakhouse near campus. Randy noticed his son looked exhausted. He suggested Brian go home, get some sleep before the trip. Brian waved it off. He had plans. At 9 p.m., Brian met his best friend and roommate, William Clint Florence, at a bar on High Street. They did what college students do on the first night of spring break. They bar hopped. Shot after shot, bar after bar, moving through the Arena District, through High Street. The kind of night that's supposed to be a good story you tell years later. Around 10 p.m., Brian called Alexis. He told her he loved her. He confirmed their Miami plans. That was the last time she heard his voice. Just after midnight, Clint's friend Meredith Reed picked them up and drove them to the Ugly Tuna Saloona, a 2-story bar in the South Campus Gateway. They ordered more drinks. Somewhere around 1 a.m., Brian told his friends he was going to talk to the band. They said okay, they'd find him later. They never found him. At 1:55 a.m., captured on the Ugly Tuna security camera, Brian Shaffer appears outside the bar's second-floor entrance. He is talking to 2 women. He says something, smiles. Then he turns, walks back through the entrance, back into the bar, and vanishes. Clint and Meredith waited. They called Brian's phone. Voicemail. They left without him, assuming he'd found his own way home. Nobody knew anything was wrong until Monday, April 3rd. That's when Brian missed his flight to Miami. That's when Alexis couldn't reach him. That's when his father called the police. And that's when investigators looked at the security footage and hit a wall they've never broken through in 20 years. The Ugly Tuna Saloona had one main entrance. 2 cameras covered it. One was fixed. One rotated on a sweep pattern. But even accounting for blind spots, the windows were seconds, not minutes. Clint and Meredith were captured on camera leaving the bar. Brian was not. The bar had one other possible exit, a service door leading to an active construction site. Workers were around. Nobody reported seeing anyone come through. A Columbus police sergeant described the area as heavily built out. Difficult to navigate, even sober. Brian had been drinking all night. But here's what investigators keep coming back to. 1 door in, 0 doors out. In 20 years, no one has explained how Brian Shaffer left that building. There is one person who was with Brian the entire night, one person who knew him best, one person who, investigators say, may know more than he has ever said. His name is William Clint Florence. After Brian disappeared, police began interviewing everyone who had been with him that night. Most cooperated fully, most took polygraph tests. Clint refused. Not once, twice. He hired a lawyer immediately. Cut off contact with Brian's family, cut off contact with Alexis. When private investigator Don Corbett, working the case for Brian's father for free, reached out again in 2008, Clint still refused. His lawyer sent an email instead. It read, "If Brian is alive, which is what I'm led to believe, then it is Brian and not Clint who is causing his family pain and hardship. Brian should come forward and end this." Read that again. If Brian is alive. A lawyer representing the only man who refused a polygraph, writing to say that Brian is probably alive. That is either information or deflection. Investigators have never publicly said which. There is one more detail. On the night of his disappearance, Clint and Brian had a verbal argument. The subject of that argument has never been revealed. Brian's brother Derek said, "I've always thought Clint definitely knows something. He just went on to build a career as a program officer at the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases." He has never spoken publicly about Brian Shaffer. 20 years later, 3 theories remain alive. The first, Brian walked away. He had just lost his mother. He was drinking heavily. He was under pressure. Med school, the trip, the ring. Maybe the weight of all of it became too much. Maybe he used the construction exit, disappeared into the night, and started over somewhere with a different name. In 2020, the FBI investigated a photo of a man in Mexico who looked like Brian. It wasn't him. The second theory. The construction site killed him. A drunk man navigating a dark active construction site at 2 a.m. A fall. A body buried accidentally under concrete or debris before anyone knew to look. It would explain why no body was ever found. It would explain why no trace of Brian ever surfaced. It would explain the silence. The third theory is the one nobody says out loud. Someone in that bar knew Brian. Someone in that bar had a reason, and someone, 20 years later, is still not talking. In 2026, the Ohio Attorney General released an age progression photo. What Brian might look like today at 47 years old. Investigators say they believe someone out there has critical information. They have been saying that for 20 years. Brian's mother never knew what happened to her son. She was already gone. His father, Randy, waited 2 years for answers that never came. In September 2008, he was struck by a falling tree during a storm. He died without knowing. Alexis Wagoner, the woman Brian was going to propose to in Miami, has never spoken publicly about what she lost. Brian's brother Derek is the only immediate family member still waiting. In 2026, he said, "Every day we think about Brian. We can't believe it's been 20 years. There is a bar in Columbus, Ohio that no longer exists. The Ugly Tuna Saloona was demolished years ago. The cameras are gone. The construction site is gone. But the footage remains. A 27-year-old medical student talking to 2 women outside a bar, turning, walking back through the entrance, 1 door in, 0 doors out. Some buildings get torn down, some questions don't, vanished.